Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Super excited to chat with new friend of the show, Mr. Michael Caprioli. You've seen him recently in Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, and the newly released Hell House LLC Lineage. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we really appreciate it. Thank you for following us on Instagram, by the way. That meant a lot to us. It's always cool when we get those follows. But we always like to kick off all of our interviews just by asking, what is it that got you into acting? Per your IMDb, this seems like a more recent endeavor. Has acting always been your dream, sir?
I've had a very odd career of twists and turns. I started as an actor when I was really young. I actually took acting lessons. I did school plays. Then I went into production, and I actually went to film school. I spent a lot of years doing theater, production, playwriting, um, indie film. So acting kind of came later again, kind of by accident. I A couple of years ago was in my dream job. I was an executive producer with a media company, and I was a kid in a candy store, man. I mean, we were doing all kinds of great stuff. We were developing a reality show. I mean, I thought, okay, after 20 some odd years of hard work, I finally made it. And then the company went under,
Mm.
and I was unemployed. And that was kind of a scary place to be when you're married with two small children and, you're pushing 50. So I was kind of in a funk, and I thought, why now? Why me? And as fate would have it, I ran into an actress friend of mine who said, you used to be an actor. Maybe think about that, at least look into background work. So and I got some headshots, and when you know it, my first gig, it's not on my IMDb because I was just a background actor, but I worked on Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet on HBO.
Nice.
I got to do a few scenes with her. That was pretty exciting. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's something to this. And then shortly after that, Hell House came along.
Sweet.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. I just have to put in my 2 cents. Hell House LLC Origins, Carmichael Manor, my favorite of the entire franchise. I think it's just fantastic. It's the first one that really actually creeped me out and scared me. So, talk about that a little bit. You started on it. How did that role come about?
I was just surfing through Backstage, and I found the audition notice. It just said indie horror film being shot in Northeast PA. Horror film was all I needed to see. It's my favorite genre. So I thought, well, this sounds interesting. It mentioned Hell House, and I did not know what these films were until I got the role. And then I went and I watched them all, and I can see why they have such a great fan base. They're well-made movies. They're scary. They're
Yeah.
well-crafted. So, but like anything else, it starts with you send in headshots, and I'll be honest, man, 99% of the time I get crickets. This is a business with a lot of rejection. So I sent in my headshots, and a couple of months went by, and I kind of forgot about it. And then one day I got a message from Stephen Cognetti. He said, "Hey, I'm sorry for the delay, but if you're still interested, do you mind doing an audition?" So he sent me the scene that we ended up doing in the finished film, which is when I'm giving the tour of the Carmichael to Margot and Rebecca. In fact,
Right.
my 15-year-old daughter was feeding me my lines from the other actors off camera. So I sent it to Steven, and then one callback later, I got it.
Nice. That's awesome.
Absolutely awesome. So let's kind of jump into Lineage just a little bit. I mean, your character has, I mean, it's pretty low key, but it has a great reveal, I thought. Did you have any idea about this character arc that you were getting, or did Steven not really reveal it until he started
No,
writing?
not
Oh,
till Lineage came along, because when the script for Origins, there was nothing in there that indicated Donald was evil. He was who he said he was. He was the caretaker. And
right.
even in my chats with, I don't think Steven had that in mind back then. I got the idea
Ah,
this was just going to be a one-off kind of character. He's kind of what I call the breadcrumb guy, because he comes in and he really lays out all the little pieces of information that gives you the backstory.
right.
Um, and I didn't want him to be flat, but at the same time, there's always a temptation when you get a character like this. You make them eccentric, or you make them a little quirky, and that would have been too distracting and over the top.
Right.
So in my conversations with Steven, it became, he was procedural, really. That was the tone I kind of gave him, with one exception, and that was anytime he talked about the family. Then there was kind of a shift in his demeanor that made him look uncomfortable. My intention with that completely was, okay, well, this is a family he knew. And this was a
Right.
horrible, visceral tragedy. So naturally, it's going to make him uncomfortable to talk about it. So that was the little nuance that I gave him. And I think that, unbeknownst to me, the audiences had a very different interpretation of where he was coming from, because neither Steven or I had any of that in mind. It was just somebody pointed out, hey, do you see what they're saying about your character? And I went on some of the fan pages on social media, and I just see these threads of conversations totally taking, what I did with the character and really diving into who he could possibly be. They thought he was a cloak. They thought he was Tully. They thought he was Patrick grown up. I was a real surprise, but a flattering
Huh.
one. I thought, wow. I was only on screen for a few minutes, and it generated a lot of talk, which is very humbling, really, as an actor.
Mm.
Oh yeah, those online theorists are the best. I love reading those theories.
They're
You,
great.
yeah, you returned in Lineage as a familiar face and had a great reveal at the end. You were in on it all with Patrick Carmichael and Andrew Tully. Michael, what were your thoughts and feelings when you filmed that scene with your big reveal? Because it was kind of one of those like, oh shoot, he's been in on it the whole time. I thought it was great. That was one of my favorite parts. Was your reveal?
Oh, thank you. No, and the funny thing is, I didn't know what the reveal was going to be. And Steven messaged me a few months before we all got back together at the Fern Hall Estate in Carbondale, which is the Carmichael. And all he said in his email was, hey, I just want you to know, keep this on the low, but I just finished the script for Hell House 5, and we are bringing Donald back, and he's going to have a very dark backstory. That's all it said. And I was very excited to see what he meant by that. But I didn't know until I got the script. And I went and looked at that page, and I went, damn, that's one hell of a mic drop.
Yeah, me
That's what
neither.
us actors like to call the "I'm your father" moment,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, as far as preparing for that, I had to, even before we got on location, what I do with any character, and you'll hear actors say this all the time, we do our homework. And
Hmm.
just like I did with the first film, I had to kind of go back and, there's a reason why he's saying what he says, and I wanted to really get into that. I always create a detailed history, some of which I get from the director and the writer, some of which I make up. It's a lot of stuff you're not going to ever see or hear, but it's just all internal, who this guy is. And now I knew this guy is evil. I mean, to the core. So everything he says, just in that one moment, has such a different meaning. Uh, when you find out you're second in command of a death cult, and one of your resume items is, hey, I opened the gateway to hell, it's not something you exactly do casually.
Right.
So
Right.
I seriously doubt the guys were sitting around in a basement going, what haven't we thought of yet here? I got it, opening the gateway to hell. Siri. No. You know so I actually went back and I looked at cult leaders, Manson, Jim Jones,
Ooh.
David Koresh. But the one who
Mm.
really got to me, and this played a bit, I think definitely played a part in how I did that scene. Not that I was going to change Donald's tone. It was pretty much set. It worked. But I was watching Marshall Herb Applewhite, who was the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult. And I
Oh
think
wow.
he's the
Yeah.
one that really disturbed me the most. Number one, it was just his tone was so calm. And those eyes, that was something I worked very
Mm.
hard on with that scene. I wanted the eyes to do a lot of work.
Mm.
There was always something about the way he stared at that camera. If you ever watched his videos, it just gave you such a chill. And here he was saying this stuff that was so absurd, but he said it with all of the confidence and belief,
Right.
you know, that imaginable. So,
Right.
and that's what I wanted in that scene. And Steven, pretty much, he gives us a lot of freedom. I mean, he knows what he's looking for, but he lets you, the actor, explore. And that's
Right.
what I wanted to do. I wanted him to say all that stuff about blood in the soil and living forever with that kind of ease and confidence of
Right.
somebody who absolutely 100% believes what they're saying.
Well, you talked about the freedom that it gave you. You know, we had Steven on in the show. He was
He's great.
fantastic. He's a brilliant guy.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what's it? You worked with him twice now. How is it working
Yeah.
with him? What's the experience
Oh,
like?
he's terrific. I'd work with him on any film. You know, and you guys could see if you had met him and you had no idea who he was, what his previous work history was. He's the last guy you would think is coming up with all of this
Oh
crazy,
yeah,
scary stuff. He's
yeah.
so, he's so gentle. He's so low key,
Very
but
down
he's
to
a great
earth. Yeah.
director. He has what I really admire in a director, and I've worked with some really good ones and some really really bad ones. He has a quiet command about him. There's definitely, uh, you know, he's working with people he's worked with for many years, especially Joe Bandelli, another great guy. Um, and there's such a shared understanding of the work, and it's like a well-oiled machine. And
Right.
he is definitely, you have no problem taking direction from him. He knows what he wants, he knows how to get it, and it's independent film, so things happen really quickly. Um, but oh, absolutely, he and Joe really set the tone for that whole set. For as scary as those movies are, the sets are anything but.
Hmm. Well, tell us a little bit more about that. Expand on that a little bit. I mean, your social media is full of behind the scenes photos. You know, it looks like you guys had a blast making this
Oh,
making the film. Can you?
absolutely. Sure. I mean, the hardest thing about a Hell House set is leaving. You really don't want to go. I mean, there's such a creative electricity going on, and everybody there is so wonderful, from cast and crew. My experience on Origins was brief. I was only on set one day, but that was definitely long enough to become lifelong friends with Destiny and Bridget, who played Margot and Rebecca. They're just wonderful ladies. I met James Liddell very briefly, also another great actor. But I left after one day. So here I was actually on set for several days. So yes, my camera was just going crazy. I love behind the scenes stuff. And having been a film student and having worked in production, I love that environment. And but then I got to meet more people in the cast that I didn't get to work with. Gideon especially. Getting to do a scene with Gideon, who plays Patrick, was just great. He is such a great actor, and he was so great in that scene. Brought such a raw intensity to Patrick Carmichael, and he's such a fascinating guy. I love chatting with him. And that's pretty much what when you're not shooting, you're in the company of all these great people. Elizabeth, who I can't say enough great things about. She did such an amazing job in this film,
She's wonderful.
carrying all that trauma and all that heartache and fear. I mean, she just really just knocked it out of the park. And she's so sweet to talk to. I mean, I only had one scene with her, but we definitely chatted a lot off camera, as I did with Victoria and Kayla. They're just such a great group of people. And even though I got more time on the set, eventually there came that day where I had to go. That was the hardest part.
Absolutely, man. That sounds awesome. It sounds like a really good time. Put in a good word for us with Bridget too. I'm going to send her a message about coming on the pod. We're reviewing Carmichael Manor next week, so I'm excited to talk to her. I thought she was great in that movie as Margot, so hopefully she'll come on. But Michael, Hell House LLC Lineage released August 20th in theaters. I got to see it on the big screen, and we got a screener, so that was really cool. How was it to see yourself on the big screen? That has to be such a special moment as an actor. Elizabeth, we asked her the same thing, and she said, I really don't like watching myself, but it was cool.
It was surreal. And that was a nice surprise for us. When we were working on the film, it was the understanding that it was going to be on Shutter and streaming platforms, and we were just as happy for that. But when we got that message that said, "Oh, guess what, guys? It's going to be in theaters," so yeah, I got to experience that twice. Once with my wife and daughters, which was really meaningful. I actually, on my social media, you brought up the many photos I have. I put a side by side photo of my wife and I from 30 years ago. Literally, these two photos are 30 years apart. The two of us when I was still a film student, and then 30 years later, seeing Hell House with our two daughters. So it was surreal. And, I at one point thought, well, yeah, one day it's going to be a premiere of something that I've done as a director or writer, but, you know, worked out very differently. It's being the actor, but it was definitely surreal. and then I got to see it with friends. So, oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely a bucket list moment.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. Like I'm really grateful we got that screener, but I wish my first watch would have been on the big screen. Just because movies just hit so much better on the big screen. Uh, I'm I'm excited to hear your answer for this next question, Michael. Uh, a lot of Lineage released to some, I'll put it in quotations, controversy. Not being found footage, some criticism with its open ending. The Facebook account telling watchers not to leave poor reviews, etc. Steven himself addressed concerns on his Instagram and by going on certain podcasts to answer questions. What are your thoughts on all this? You listened to our reactions, so you know our thoughts on the subject. We were all fans for the most part, but some of us did kind of miss the found footage. Just what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great that people are talking about it, and everybody can have an opinion. And great thing. One of the things I like about this show and a lot of the podcasts that are talking about it is that you're talking about it, intelligently. You're talking about it from a film angle. Well, here's what we thought worked. Here's what we didn't work. You're not like just giving the one word. Oh, this sucked. Well, you want to elaborate on that a little bit? No, I get where the fans are coming from. I think Steven made the right choice to go without the found footage. I think it would have been more distracting to try to find creative ways of discovering the footage.
Agreed. Right.
Agree.
And it definitely shows his gifts as a filmmaker, that he is
Right.
capable of doing something besides what he's been doing, for a number of years. He's grateful for the success, but I'm sure he was ready to try something different. And as far as the ending goes, the unhappy or the unresolved ending, whatever you want to call it, has been used before to some great success. I mean, if you look back at some classic films, I think that's a bold choice, especially in horror. I think
Right.
it's a great choice because there's something kind of deliciously sick and twisted about scaring the crap out of an audience for 2 hours and then not letting them off the hook when they
There
leave
you
the
go.
theater.
Blair Witch comes to mind.
Blair Witch, you can go back even further into the 1950s. I mean, Rod Serling did that masterfully week after week on The Twilight Zone. There are
Oh yeah. Oh,
shows
absolutely.
people still talk about.
Yeah.
The original version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1956, that famous shot of Kevin McCarthy going down the freeway saying, "They're coming for you. You'll be next. You'll be next." Unheard of at the time.
Right.
Shocked people. Or the ending to The Omen was one of my favorites. Where
Oh
the
yeah.
kid Damien just smiles at the camera.
Mhm.
People is still here. So I think it's a bold choice,
It
but I
is.
think it works. And The Shining, I mean, I think we can agree that was a very divisive film when it came out.
Right.
Especially the ending. It kind of confused people. There was no closure, so to speak. But boy, people still talk about that film.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's just kind of go on a little lighter note. If you have anything, if you want to talk about Hell House some more, we'll more than happy to you. I just saw on social media where you're a big Penn State fan. You're a Nittany Lions fan.
Yes,
What I was personally rooting to get James Franklin a few coaches ago and didn't turn out. He wanted to stick with you guys. So what do you guys? What do you think about this year? How's it looking for you?
I always have hope for the best for our team. My wife and I are both Penn State alums, so that's where we met.
Nice.
Nice.
Yep. And we love to go back and visit when we can. But I always like to see our team do well. And we're big supporters of Penn State Thon, which is their annual dance marathon to raise money for pediatric cancer. It's a
Nice.
student-run charity. I think it is the most successful student-run charity in the country. So we're always rooting that on because they
It's
raise
great.
millions every year for a good cause. So yeah, we're very blue and white proud here.
Awesome. I'm excited for college football to be back. Michael, we're about to wrap up. Is there anything else, Hell House LLC, you want to talk before we get ready to wrap this up? We're going to let you plug anything else you may be working on. Shout out your social medias for our listeners to follow you. Is there anything Hell House you want to plug before you just shout out your socials and all that?
I have a lot of great stuff on my socials, my Instagram at Mike Caprioli. I also have a Facebook page. actor Michael Caprioli. I'm always putting stuff on there. I have quite a few videos, and there's tons of photos that we all took that we all share. So I'm putting a lot of them up there. I keep
Nice.
busy. I have a film project I'm working on right now that shoots next month. It's another supporting role, and it is the complete opposite of what I just did in Hell. It's not a horror film at all. It's actually based on a true story drama, and
Nice.
a very touching story. And I have a character I get to play as a kind of a cocky reporter who very unwillingly is sent to cover a story, but the story ends up changing him for the better. So
That
it's
sounds good.
complete polar opposite, because I have a gut feeling I might get cast as the shady creep with a hidden agenda. Not that I have a problem doing that. I clearly I can play that, I guess, but I don't want to get pigeonholed.
I understand.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we tag you and everything. Listeners, go follow Michael. You're an awesome guy. It was awesome to see Lineage on the big screen. Any final thoughts before we let you go, sir?
Just a big thank you to all of the fans of Hell House. I really have to say, it was you guys that really played a part in bringing my character back. Had you guys not taken the time to talk about him, to share your theories about him, Steven took notice to that too. So I'm pretty sure that's why he wrote the character in there and said, okay, well, let's really give him a surprise. So I have to say thank you to him.
Absolutely. And I saw where Steven said he's working on more scary movies. Hopefully you get, callbacks to be, continue being in his movies. And I do want to comment on one thing you mentioned. You brought up all the fan talk after Lineage. I know as an actor, actress, whatever, you might, get your feelings hurt if someone doesn't like your movie, but it also means that your fans are passionate about the movies. Sure, maybe some are disappointed, but that just means that they love the previous installments. Mm-hmm. So it's nice. It's nice to have a fan base. That's really awesome.
Oh, it sure is, and you can't that we don't. Any actor learns very quickly. You don't take things personally. You don't take reviews personally.
I work on that because people will say bad stuff about our show sometimes, and it does get to you. Like it will get to you.
Yeah. Believe it, you will. You do grow a thick skin over time. Believe me.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. If you ever want to come back on to promote anything, just send us a message and we'll happily do it for you.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you guys very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Have a
It's
good
very
evening.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. You take care.